Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is an employer webinar where we're going to be discussing legislative changes that recently occurred for both the optional retirement plan as well as the regular teacher's retirement plan. And with that, some enhancements that we have made to the online enrollment process. This is going to be general information. It's really just to be used as a guide. As you guys know, we have a number of tools available online for you that will go into more depth on things like the enrollment process or eligibility. I will try to answer as many questions as I can. I'll probably pause midway through as we kind of switch topics to see what I can answer. Ed Brannigan is here with me today. He is in the background, so he may kind of moderate and answer questions where he can. But otherwise, if we can't get to all of the questions, you guys know how to reach us. You have our contact info. Please don't hesitate to reach out. These slides are available on our website. They should have been posted as handouts, so you can run there and print them now if you want to have a copy to make notes on, or to refer back to once this webinar has ended. And I do believe this will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page and our employer training page of our external website. We're going to look at a number of things today. What I like to do is always give you guys a big overview. So we'll cover all of the recent legislative changes. And then we're going to break it into two buckets. We're going to look at everything that impacts enrollment. And then we're going to look at everything that impacts the ORP. So let's go ahead and get started. First, diving into changes related to enrollments, we have Act 351. This was formerly House Bill 307, and it requires state agencies or political subdivisions to verify citizenship or immigration status. So this is required for any state agency that is paying out some sort of a benefit. We have to verify citizenship now. And that's one of the things we'll get into when we look at the new enrollment processes. Now, Act 47 was quite a large bill for us this year. It's mostly related to the ORP, but it also included an opt-out provision for the regular teacher's retirement system. So there are certain criteria, and we'll take a look at this, but there's certain criteria for people who meet it. They could choose to not join the retirement system at all. With Act 47, we also have changes to that new option for ORP participants to leave the ORP in order to join TRSL, in order to join the regular defined benefit system. We will definitely take a good look at these changes, but just know that it's creating a new window of opportunity and it's extending the 5-year window. And the last relevant change is still related to the ORP, kind of related to the boards. One, it creates an advisory committee so that the ORP participants have representation. It does include one ORP participant as well as someone from each of the 4 public systems. Additionally, the Commissioner of Post-Secondary Education has been added as an ex officio member on TRSL's Board of Trustees. All right, so that again was just a big overview of everything that we saw this year. If you want more info, we do have a webinar that goes a bit deeper into each of those things. There was a legislative overview from a few weeks ago. We're going to shift gears and we're going to look at the enrollment changes that you guys are going to see starting August 1st. So first, we're going to talk about this Act 351 with the citizenship and immigration status. As I've stated, this is a requirement for anyone who's paying out some sort of benefit for a federal, state, or local system. That includes our retirement benefits. But for our purposes, we're going to be collecting this verification, if you will, at the time of enrollment. So you, the employer, will be responsible for verifying their citizenship or their immigration status through the regular federal process. That's that I-9 or the E-Verify process. Once you have done so and you're at the point where you're ready to submit the online enrollment in EMIS, in the teacher's retirement system, you will go through and enter all the usual info, and then there will be a checkbox where you're going to certify that either you or someone within the employing agency has verified the member's eligibility for employment. Now, the law does stipulate what action should be taken if you're not eligible to confirm that eligibility, so I do suggest that you take a look at that. Our system is not going to allow an enrollment to be processed without having checked that box. And again, checking this box is saying that you are in compliance with this law and that you have verified this individual's or this employee's citizenship. Now, the other changes to the enrollment program are more so enhancements. The first is going to be related to how you are keying in the individual's social security number. We're now going to ask you to do so twice, and you will not be able to copy and paste, but you're going to manually key in the social security number in the usual box. And then it will, when you tab or if you hit enter, that first box will sort of disappear and a second open field will pop up below it for you to confirm that social security number. So it's kind of a blind verification system. You're going to enter the social security number again. If you match, then you'll be able to proceed with the regular enrollment. The screens will look like they normally do. If there's a mismatch, if there's a typo or they don't reconcile, then you're going to be asked to double check those numbers and go back and re-enter them. Okay, so again, this is going to start August 1st. When you enter the enrollment portal, the first time you key in that social security number, you may notice that you're not going to be able to copy and paste any longer. After you key it in the first time, you'll be required to enter it a second time into a second field right below it. The other enhancement that we are rolling out on August 1st is the collection of email addresses. So this field has always been available, but it was optional. We are now strongly encouraging all employers to provide us with either a work or a personal email address for all employees. The goal is that starting January 1st, it will become mandatory. It will be a mandatory entry. This is really so that we can have a way to access our new members, especially so that we can get them information related to member access or my TRSL, as I think it's going to be called in the future. So, we want to make sure that they have a way to create that account so that they can update their name or their address, review their employment history and member statements. And that really starts with the data that we're collecting from you all on the front end. So again, email addresses, it is optional, but strongly encouraged starting 8/1 and then, January 1st, it will become mandatory. Now, the last thing that we have to touch on related to membership and enrollment is this new opt-out. So this option is for those who would be eligible for the regular retirement system for the first time on or after July 1st, 2025. So it's truly your new hires. And they are able to choose to completely opt out of membership if they are at least age 60 or if they are at least age 55 and they have 40 quarters in Social Security. If they decide to decline membership, there is a form that's required. So this is a picture of it on the screen. It's a Form 17. It requires both the employee and an employer signature. We encourage you, the employing agency, to keep the original and to remit a copy to us. There is no online enrollment or other sort of notification that is required, just this form. And we're just going to sort of keep those so that if we ever needed to reference it, we would be able to do so. Okay, if there are any questions at this point about enrollments or this opt-out, please feel free to go ahead and type them into the Q&A box. I don't see anything just yet. So I'm gonna kind of shift gears and start with ORP, but if there are questions, I'll kind of take a minute and pause if they start coming in. Is the opt-out irrevocable? Okay, so we have two questions. One, is the opt-out irrevocable? And then is there any advice or guidance on how to communicate the opt-out? So we have information about the opt-out on our website. It is available for membership as a whole. So System 4 or Plan B. In terms of advice or guidance, this is really something that I would say either have the employee reach out to our system, to one of our counselors, or their financial advisor. You guys would really only be guiding them in terms of eligibility. Otherwise, if they're trying to decide which is best for them, that is something that, I think they need to really talk through with their financial advisor, especially if they are taking Social Security into account. All right, so let's shift and let's talk about the ORP, and then I can get back to um, whether we can get back into membership. You guys have a couple of questions. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, so it's going to be the age when they're hired. So you're looking at obviously someone that's hired July 1st or after, and at the time in which they're hired, do they meet the criteria to be eligible to opt out? Once they join the system, they're no longer eligible for this clause. So once they decide to join the system, they must remain a member. Okay, we're going to shift into ORP real fast because I don't want this to run too long, and then we can kind of get back to some of those questions. If you have a specific instance with this opt-out, you can always reach out and we can look at that person specifically, or we can talk to an individual who may have really specific questions. So with the ORP, just a refresher, it is a defined contribution plan that is offered in lieu of the teacher's retirement system. Um, it's available to be offered through public post-secondary institutes. It's available to unclassified people within that sort of higher ed post-secondary arena. But a lot of you who are not higher ed institutes may have participants who are in the ORP because historically, once an individual elected to join the ORP, it was irrevocable. So they could not leave if they switched from, say, LSU to East Baton Rouge school system. That election still remained in place. You all are hopefully aware, last year, Act 109 passed, and that opened up windows of opportunity for participants to leave the ORP in order to join the teacher's retirement system. Okay, so that in and of itself is completely new to the ORP. And this year, Act 47 kind of adjusted those windows, and we're going to take a look at those in a second. The other thing that's new in general to the ORP is that technical colleges, faculty and staff, can now be offered the ORP in lieu of the teacher's retirement system. So before, with the technical colleges, you may have had an employee who made the election to join ORP through a previous employer at a different college. They came to you and they were remaining in the ORP. Now, my technical colleges, you guys can actually offer the ORP up front when you're hiring someone. This really is going to be great for those of you who have part-time or those seasonal employees that aren't eligible for the teacher's regular plan. Now they have an option in the ORP. There's only 5 colleges that are impacted. If you guys have specific questions, I'm going to touch on this just a little bit, some things that you guys need to know towards the end of this. But if y'all have specific questions, please know that you can reach out to us and we can walk you through the ORP as a whole if we need to. All right, so let's first look at the original windows for the election to leave the ORP in order to join the teacher's retirement system. And these are not always the easiest to navigate, especially now that we have this new window. So y'all bear with me. Ask your questions. I'm gonna try to make this as clear as I can for us, but it's a lot to digest. I know that, okay? So Act 109 originally gave us a 1-year window, which just closed on June 30th, and a 5-year window, which was 5 years from the individual's first ORP eligibility date. Employees were placed into one of these two windows based on that first ORP eligible date. So not when they joined the ORP, but when their ORP eligible employment began. So when were they first hired in higher education? Whether they elected to join the ORP or not, that becomes their eligibility date. So if that date was on or after August 1st of 2020, then they fall into the 5-year window. Now that 5-year window has been extended to a 7-year window. That's one of the changes from this past legislative session from Act 47. So again, if that eligibility date was on or after August 1, 2020, they now have 7 years from that first eligible date to choose whether they want to stay in the ORP or leave and join teachers. Now, with the 1-year window, that was anyone whose employment, first eligible employment, began prior to August 1st, 2020. Okay, that would have initially put them in the 1-year bucket. On top of that, to be eligible to make the election, they had to be active and contributing as of June 2024. If they were not active June of 2024, then they just were not eligible at all under Act 109. So what Act 47 did is create a brief window for those individuals that were initially deemed not eligible. Okay, so we're still looking at those individuals who became eligible for the ORP prior to August of 2020, who were not active and contributing in June of 2024, so they were not actively employed when 109 passed. Once they become re-employed, whether that happened last school year, it's happening right now, or it's going to be happening in the future, they'll have a 60-day window. Okay, so very short, but they are being offered an opportunity to make this election. For those who were, I'm going to say re-employed, that's not the technically correct term, but for those that were hired and started contributing during the 24-25 school year, their window is going to be September 2nd, 2025. That is 60 days from July 1, which is when this bill went into effect. Okay, so again, if you had someone that was initially deemed not eligible, you hired them around Christmas time, they can now make the election to join the teacher's retirement system. They have until September 2nd to do so. Now, anyone that's going to be hired for the current school year or beyond, they will have 60 calendar days from the date of hire. Okay, so if their date of hire is today, July 24th, then they have 60 days from today to get that form into us to choose to join the teacher's retirement system. And then again, as I've kind of already stated, that 5-year group has been extended to 7. So these are our two new windows. We had the initial 1-year group that has closed. We have this new 60-day window. And then we have the 7-year window. The decision to leave the ORP is still irrevocable. So once someone remits this form to us, it is not something that they can undo. Okay, that's the form 2TR. This is a two-sider, so there's a couple of places where the participant has to initial, they'll sign, and then you as the employing agency, there's some employment info that you have to provide along with a signature. This election form has to be an original. I always advise you guys to make a copy of it and keep it for your own records. It must be received in-house by whatever the time limit is, whatever that expiration date is. So if someone's deadline was, let's say, June 30th, they were in that 1-year group, then we needed to have received the form in-house by June 30th, or whatever the last working day was if June 30th was a weekend. So had to be in-house, not postmarked, not date stamped, but actually when it was received by staff here in the building. Okay. That is still true for those with the September 2nd window. We're going to have to receive it in-house. And then 60 days, we're going to try to provide notice to those individuals when we see that either we've gotten a new Form 16 or contributions are being remitted. We're going to try to notify them as quickly as we can that they have a 60-day window, but it's going to be so helpful if you guys are able to recognize that they may now have the opportunity and let them know that the clock has started ticking. Now, for those of them who do make the choice to join the teacher's retirement system, they'll be doing so as a brand new member of the 2015 plan. That did not change. So they will have the same retirement eligibility as any new member. They have to be at least age 62 with 5 years of service, or any age with at least 20 years of service. And of course, that is the actuarially reduced sort of early retirement option. We always advise participants to talk with their financial advisor when trying to decide between staying in the ORP or leaving so that they can join teachers. One of the things that you guys can take away from this and kind of explain to them is really just the difference between the two plans. So the ORP is a defined contribution plan. That means that the benefits that they're going to receive are strictly based on the dollar amount of that ORP account. So we, the teacher's retirement system, we are really just a flow-through agency. We take their employee contributions and the transferable amounts of the employer contributions, send it to the participant's elected vendor, Voya, TIA, or Corebridge. The participant drives those investments. They determine how they want to move those funds around. And then again, benefits are strictly based on the investments and the balance of that ORP account. With the regular plan, it's a defined benefit. So we're pooling all of the employee and employer contributions. The retirement system is investing them on behalf of the system trust. And then benefits are paid out not in relation to the dollar amount of contributions at all, but instead based on service credit, their salary at the time of retiring, and a benefit factor. Okay, so two completely different type of benefits. That's kind of the first thing that they need to look at. Then again, we really advise that they talk with a financial advisor and consider their long-term career path or expectations. One of the big questions that we got last year, so I wanted to make sure to just cover it again today, is what happens to the ORP account when someone makes this election? And you really, this is again one of those things that's not technically correct, but I feel like it helps in sort of compartmentalizing. I tell people to think of it as if it's two unrelated periods of employment. That ORP account is always going to be separate from the pension account, from the defined benefit plan. The funds can't commingle in any way. They can't transfer their ORP funds into TRSL. They're not given any kind of service credit. They will continue to drive their investments. They'll continue to, you know, monitor and manage the funds that are in their ORP account, but they're not actively contributing to that account any longer. The only way that those two accounts really affect one another is that an employee cannot receive a distribution from their ORP account while they are actively contributing to TRSL. And it's because it is employment eligible for membership, and that would be considered an in-service distribution. Okay, so as soon as the individual terminates employment, whether they retire or they just go inactive, at that point, they can access the funds in their ORP account. But as long as they're contributing to this system, even if it's summertime, they are not able to get a distribution. And then, of course, they cannot utilize their ORP contributions in order to purchase TRSL service credit, whether that's what they would call sort of airtime to give themselves credit for what they contributed into the ORP, or to purchase prior refunded time from TRSL or other types of credit that is eligible for purchasing within the TRSL system. I have two slides here that I'm really not going to cover with you guys. It's things you have seen before and that you're probably pretty familiar with, but I wanted to make sure to include them just as another tool if you guys are ever in a scenario where you kind of need to discuss the difference between the two plans, either so you have a better understanding or so that you can kind of answer questions from your employees. And it's really just looking at a side by side of the duration of the benefit or the types of payments, whether or not there's disability or survivor benefits, etc. All right, so we're going to shift. We're really getting towards the end here. So if you have questions about anything we've discussed, please feel free to go ahead and ask them now. These last couple of slides are going to really talk about offering the ORP and sort of when you do it, what timeframes you need to be aware of. So for my technical colleges, this is going to be great info for you if you're not aware of this just yet. So the general rule of thumb with the ORP is that a member can choose to join as long as they're not vested in the regular plan. So as long as they're not at 5 years of eligibility credit in the teacher's retirement system, whether they're not a member at all or they have 4 years, as long as they're not vested, then they can choose to join the ORP at any point in time. If they are vested, so they have the 5 years of eligibility credit, but they have never been offered the ORP before because they were never employed with someone who could offer the ORP. So for my LCTCS agencies, they have 180 days from July 1st to make that election. Okay. So that's 180 days from July 1. For K through 12, if you're on and you're listening to this, for you guys, that would be a 60-day window, 60 days from the date of hire. But for LCTCS right now, you guys have an extended window since this is the first time the plan is it's sort of being established with you all. Now, for someone to make the election to join the ORP, they're going to complete a Form 16. This also has to be an original. I advise you to keep a copy of it, as always. Again, this requires signatures from both the participant and the employer. What makes it a little different than some of our other forms is that we do not look at the date in which it is received. Instead, we look at the date in which it is signed in relation to their date of hire. Okay, so what we do is compare the hire date that you provide to us on that form to the signature date, and that's what's going to determine their ORP enrollment date or the effective date. Okay, so if they're signing that form, if they're making the election within 60 days of being hired, then their ORP enrollment date or the effective date is going to be retroactive to that date of hire, the first date of employment. If you are someone who enrolls your employees in the teacher's retirement system, quickly, and you start reporting earnings, and then within that 60 days, they decide they're going to go ahead and join the ORP, you would need to do a contribution correction to remove those earnings and then report them to the ORP on your next ORP salary file. We would delete the enrollment for you, but you would need to make sure to remove those contributions. Now, if the form is signed more than 60 days from their date of hire, the effective date is not retroactive. Okay? It's going to be the first of the month based on when they signed the form. So, for example, today is July 24th. Let's say this person started working with you in January. Okay, so they're obviously outside of their 60-day window. If an individual signs the form anytime from the 16th of the month to the end of the month, then the enrollment date becomes the first of the following month. So they signed the form today, July 24th. Their ORP enrollment date is August 1st. If, let's say it was July 4th when they signed it, then their effective date is going to be the first of the current month. So July 1st. Okay. You guys don't have to figure that out anymore. The Form 16 used to require you guys to provide us with the effective date. And we realized that that just wasn't the most efficient way to do it. And it was more important that we collected that date of hire, especially with Act 109. So we do now provide a sort of acknowledgement letter to you when someone joins the ORP, and it does include the effective date for you, especially so that you can be aware of someone who needs to shift from being reported under System 4 to the ORP System 6. We had a question: if someone is hired and they enroll in the teacher's retirement system, do they later have an opportunity to rejoin the teacher's retirement system? And the answer is more than likely, but it just depends on which of those buckets they fall into. So when were they first eligible? If they're a new employee for you, but they have prior time in the system, they might be in one of those earlier windows. Their window could have already expired, or they might be in this 60-day window. If they're a new employee to you and it's the first time they're joining the system or they're eligible for the system, then they should fall into that 7-year window. Okay. So new hires going forward, everyone should have that new 7-year window to leave the ORP and join teachers. Once someone chooses to join the ORP, if they had service credit in the teacher's retirement system, they have two options. They can choose to transfer those funds to their new ORP account. We would only transfer the member contributions, the employer contributions stay with the pension system, or they can choose to leave their funds in the regular retirement system. And then with that, they could either, if they're not vested or if they choose to do so, they could refund the member contributions at a later date and time once they've terminated employment. Or if they're vested, they could leave the contributions there until they are eligible to collect a retirement benefit. All right. So with that, we'll see if there's any other questions. My contact info is here, but you also have assigned liaisons for each agency. Of course, Miss Sandra Grisby is available if you have reporting questions with the ORP. Anyone here in Employer Services can always help you. Hopefully you guys are familiar with us and know how to reach out to us. This PowerPoint will not be emailed out, but the slides are available on our external website. Additionally, this webinar will be posted online. I believe it'll be posted on our YouTube channel as well as on the employer training page of our website. I want to just say thank you to everyone for attending today. I know this information can sometimes be a lot, so every time you guys jump on with us and hear it again, hopefully it makes it a little easier to actually apply. But like I always say, our job is literally to answer your questions, so reach out if you need anything, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon. Thank you.